It's when you can't draw the line.
Can I recommend some chocolate you might like? Here's what we can do to change the world right now to a better ride. Take all that money we spend on weapons and defense each year and instead spend it feeding, clothing, and educating the poor of the world, which has lived many times over, not one human being included, and we can explore space together, both inner and outer, forever in peace. Thank you very much. You've been great. I hope you enjoyed it. London, you're fantastic. Thank you. Thank you very much.
God, 1994.
Wow.
Wow.
So yeah, I was watching Lori Spencer from the Strange. What is it called? Strange Bedfellows? Is that it? Podcast. She's doing a special right now on Bill Hicks. So that intro is pretty nice. I do love Bill Hicks. Such an incredible visionary comic. I mean, they just don't make them like that anymore, do they? And he died 30 years ago now. It's something to really consider. Like, wow. It doesn't seem that long ago, but it was. It really was. It was funny listening to some of his jokes I hadn't heard in a long time. Politics really does make strange bedfellows. It really does. It's interesting where you end up finding yourself aligned or unaligned. And, you know, sometimes I'm surprised. Like I never expected some of the sort of alliances I would have in my life, or you know, the people I would be in agreement with on different things. It's fascinating. Hi Seth, how you doing tonight? What a day, huh? What a day. So yeah, Bill Hicks is telling the joke about, and one of the jokes that came up was how he found himself in alignment with Saddam Hussein and wanting to see George Bush's head kicked down the street like a football. God, the Bushes. What a mess. What a mess. Oh, the Gulf Wars. What a mess. Oh, got some marker on me here. Oh, Matthew's here. Hi, Matthew. Oh, yeah. Did you see my post on Instagram kind of making fun of it a little bit? I'm not going to watch the video because obviously I have enough horrible images in my mind over the years. I don't need to see another. But I don't know. I've seen a couple people cover it, but I was just very brief. I don't know if it's true, but I heard it on Ben Shapiro's shows, but I don't think he would make it up. So, but he said that the guy had included his pronouns in his suicide note. Like, the man was very clearly very disturbed, you know, like obviously you have to be to do that. Especially over this issue, you know. Like really, what does setting yourself on fire do for the Palestinians at all? You would have done more to help the people that you supposedly, you know, are so concerned about by staying alive. It's just really very foolish. I mean, my heart goes out to his family because he was very clearly, again, mentally disturbed. But I think it's like, yeah, he literally died on that hill. Yeah. What a hill to die on. Like this conflict has been going on since before I was alive. It's been going on 70 plus years. I'm not interested. Just not. It's not like, what am I going to do? I'm going to make it, I'm going to, I'm going to make it my problem in this way. I don't. My friend, yeah, and I were talking about it recently because she was dealing with some protesters near her home, which is on, in a different part of town. And obviously, like, I've been dealing with them downtown quite a bit. Like, they show up every week, or like a couple times a week sometimes. And they're just like so obnoxious. It's just funny because, like, for so much of my life, I was raised in a liberal household. I don't want to call my father a liberal. He was a free thinker to a certain degree, but he did take kind of very standard left-wing stances on certain things, like the issue of Israel versus Palestine. Kind of grew up with that perspective, and then as I became a leftist, in my own right, I was supportive of Palestine. Of course, I never got into it like this bad. It just wasn't my issue. But, generally, I don't know. After October 7th, like, I hadn't thought about the issue in years, but after October 7th, I was just like, I don't know, maybe it's been a few years coming actually, because, a few years coming, honestly, that I was kind of softening in my heart about the Israeli state and kind of understanding the plight of the people there and, what Israel represents in terms of like a nation in that part of the world. So I kind of had softened in my heart a bit about Israel. And then when October 7th happened, I just didn't have any, like, I didn't have anything but like desire and understanding for Israel to defend itself and to, again, like, not only defend itself, but like to get its hostages back. There are people that have been taken into Palestine and are being held and tortured, and God knows what's happening to those people. And those people are not very different from you or I. They're very similar, probably. Yeah, of course I do. I grew up in my dad talked with me about politics. We even did political campaigning, like, locally. I'm gonna take my hat off. I thought it would look cute, but I'm feeling it's a little bit extra. Especially when I turned the light on. I was like, in the dark it looked okay, but now I'm like, too extra. Yeah, my dad we campaigned a couple of times during like the mayoral races in Anchorage. We supported Mark Begich in his candidacy. He lost the first time he ran, and then when he ran again, we supported him. And we actually were responsible for delivering like signs, those signs that people put in their yard. So we were responsible for like delivering those to supporters. So my dad had me involved in that, and we went to like the campaign headquarters, and I met him there for the first time. I met him multiple times, and I ended up working in City Hall before I left Anchorage, when I was 18, 19. And then also we campaigned for Ralph Nader in 2000. So we supported him, so we were part of that campaign as well. He actually had a lot of, and yeah, my dad was involved with his union as well too. So I was taken to like union meetings as well. So I had an understanding of that. My dad was a Teamster. So I grew up with like some political awareness, and of course I had my own interest in it. And I, started reading different like politically themed texts and things as a teenager, or watching politically themed films and documentaries, getting into that. So I was interested from a pretty early age, and I grew up kind of getting that perspective. But yeah, as I grew older, like I kind of became more hard left, and my dad was kind of more moderate. So we had differences of opinion there. Oh, that's too dark. I don't like that. And yeah, he was supporting Bernie Sanders before he passed away. So my dad was like, "This is probably your only opportunity to support a socialist campaign for president." And I was like, "He's not socialist enough for me. He's not a real socialist," which he's not. Which he is not. But yeah, I was snarking on Instagram about this young man who immolated himself. It's pretty horrible. But I mean, like, you put your pronouns in your suicide note, really? Who cares? Like you need like this. Like, not only are you like you're death by virtue signaling, but you're gonna virtue signal to the nth degree. Oh, Amy's here. Hi, Amy. How old were I? Did I answer that? Yeah, I mean, I think when we first campaigned for Mark Begich, I must have been like pre-teenage. I think I was in middle school. It's a lot of white, honestly. I'm not digging it too much. Really? That's weird. Yeah, my dad was very politically astute, and he would often like watch political programs and then like yell at the TV. Quite funny, quite funny. Sometimes I can't watch TV now because I get like all into it like that too. I get like all riled up and I start like responding. But I guess I do, like, I watch things online. I just don't watch, I guess, that form of media. I mean, if I were watching like the shows they have on television, I would probably be yelling. At least online, I can kind of curate things of that and watch what's more entertaining and of interest to me. Where am I going with this? Yeah, especially mainstream politics. Especially mainstream politics. It's like, talk to me about interesting politics. Don't talk to me about this like very boring stuff. Like, talk to me about like the weird stuff. Talk to me about like things I, don't really. Just talk to me about like weird fringe stuff. What all happened with Ben Shapiro earlier? I watched his like show today briefly, and he had brought up, he was talking about the young man, I can't remember his name right now, that had set himself on fire. So that's all that happened today. I didn't leave any like, I didn't leave any comments for him that were, too flattering, I guess. I don't always, I respect his mind as well as his, handsomeness. He's, I mean, when he did his birthday post, I definitely like you know, told him he looked good. I mean, he just turned 40. He's looking very good. He's got his beard has finally come in. He's looking, very, very nice. Mm. Oh, Ron Paul got you all excited. Oh dear. I remember, yeah, Ron Paul campaign, and the Ron Paulites were at the anti-war protests, which was cool. They were kind of set up near our tent because what year was that? Was it 2007, 2008? It must have been 2008. Was that the year that Ron Paul? Yeah, it was, wasn't it? So yeah, we had this anti-capitalist tent. So Radical Women, Freedom Socialist Party, and a bunch of other local organizations had a tent set up, like this big tent set up at the anti-war rally um, in town, and we had different tables. But I have to say, the anarchist groups were really, they didn't participate. Like they were all involved in the organizing of it, but on the day of, they didn't table at all. Like they had their table, they just threw down their materials and they all went outside and were playing with their weird puppets and things. I was being teased. I was being teased. I was being bullied, honestly, is what was happening. I was being bullied by multiple people, male and female. I do appreciate that Nick came in and, started talking about how he thought that Ben Shapiro was a good guy to have a crush on. I thought that was hilarious. He's an orthodox conservative guy. He's got a family. Which is all true. He is a nice man in that regard. And he does a lot of interesting stuff. I just found out he'd been. I mean, I didn't know about the Daily Wire does put out a lot of interesting things, not just obviously their commentary news programs, but they've been doing Bible series, and he has a book club and stuff. And I had come across some videos of him talking about C.S. Lewis's screw tape letters, so that was interesting. Yeah, I think he's a very. I mean, I don't know. It's a crush, it doesn't mean anything really. It's just a crush. And I think I just like his, demeanor and personality. I find him very, he's kind of snarky and oh, that's nice. You have a leftist tears Tumblr. That's nice. No, I don't know. I never was I don't know if he ever would have been involved because I wasn't. I don't know. I never really. I think I was out of that before Ben kind of came around, really. Because by the time I started to notice who Ben Shapiro was, I was more involved in radical feminism. So that was funny today because Hake was covering a turf. What was her name? Hollow Earth turf. I love the Hollow Earth theory. It's one of my favorite conspiracies actually, and I read some stories years ago, kind of talking about how people got through the passage of the Hollow Earth and kind of were traveling in these different lands. I wish I could come across that stuff again. It was really fascinating. I bet if I dug. But yeah, Hollow Earth is one of my favorite conspiracies. And I love how it like mixes with other ones. So now they have like the flat earth model with like the flat hollow earth model. So like they'll have like depictions, maps of the earth, and they'll have like, okay, here is the flat earth, and then here are the points of entry through the ice walls where you can go into and discover the other lands. Hmm. I don't know who that is. JS Urban Adventures. Yeah, they're fascinating stories. Like I love Hollow Earth. I've gotten into Tartaria as well a bit. Like um, Flat Earth is interesting. Yeah, we mentioned that too. Like I had I've gotten people interested. I've gotten people like into the flat Earth who otherwise wouldn't have. You know, they'll bring it up or something. And I'll be like, oh, I am. I mean, I'm agnostic about the shape of the Earth. I really don't know or care because I'm not planning to leave. You know, and so to me, it's really uninteresting to me whether the Earth is, you know, a globe or some other sort of design. It really doesn't impact my life at all, and that's kind of, even though I got sucked into it and was like, oh, this is interesting, and I really don't care, and it really doesn't matter. Because what am I? Does the shape of the earth actually impact my life? I'm not a pilot. I'm not a sailor. You know, if I do travel anywhere, I'm a passenger. Well, Lord Bibby, you'll have to, you know, introduce us if he shows up. That'd be nice. No, I haven't heard of electric universe theory. Interesting. Okay. Yeah, definitely. Definitely. Oh, I need to answer the biblical question this week on JLP. I need to do that. I'll probably send in a super chat tomorrow morning so I can get it read out. But yeah, the question about what is hell? Because I figured out what hell was a while ago, like years ago, at least in terms of my definition and how I understood it, and kind of realizing that I'd been in it. And it's funny how into the flat earth or people are also like the people against it too. They're very like very upset about it. Mm. Yeah, exactly. I love to troll and heckle, you know, just get my little bit of my little thrill, get my little bit of excitement. So yeah, the title today, you don't listen as well as you hear. I think that's a line from the Mike and the Mechanic song, right? But I've been thinking about it recently because there's a big difference between listening and hearing someone. So I thought I would talk about the difference between that today. Um, and we're always being told like you need to listen, to people. You know, are you you're not listening to me? It's often a thing that women complain about with men, like they're not listening. Or I get it too because I'm the sort of person, and I don't know if it's just like I don't think it's specifically like a male female thing, although it can be. A lot of it's just down to your temperament, but there are people who are sometimes it's not with women, sometimes women want to commiserate. They want to complain and commiserate and be like, they just want to be, I think, listened to. You know, they want someone to listen to them and to like commiserate with them and make them feel like, you know, that it's going to be okay or something. I don't know, but I get really irritated because when somebody starts complaining to me, when someone comes to me and they're presenting to me that they have a problem, you know, my impulse is to try to fix it. You know, my impulse as a human being is to try to help them solve it. I think that's normal. Like if somebody's telling me like I don't like this in my life, or I don't like that, you know, or I'm unhappy here, I'm unhappy there, or da da da, like my immediate impulse is to be like, okay, well, you can do this, you can do that, you can do this, you can do that. Like, you know, come up with a solution. I am solution oriented. And I think I've seen a lot of the times conflicts between men and women in terms of communication because women just want to complain, but they don't really want to be like, they don't want to change the situation. And I think men are kind of more oriented towards being problem solvers, right? This is just kind of like a way that we're wired differently. I mean, not completely. Obviously, like different people have different temperaments. And you have like women who have like more masculine minds than others, or men who have more feminine mind than others. But generally speaking, that's an issue that I've come across a number of times. But anyway, I'm bringing that up because like I've had conflicts with other women about it. It's something that like I've struggled in my relationships with other women, my friendships and working relationships, because they'll get really mad at me if they come to me and they want to like complain, and I'm like, okay, do this, 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 and this, and then you're fine. Your problem solved. And they're like, I just want to be listened to. I'm like, ugh. Because I'm the kind of person, like, I'm not going to bring you a problem. I'm not going to go to another person with a problem and complain about it unless I'm intending to fix it somehow. You know, I will keep my problems to myself if I'm not ready to fix it. Because I've been in situations like that in my life where it's like, I know I have a problem, but I'm not ready to get out of it yet. Or at least like, I mean, some problems you need time. Some problems just need time. And so if I'm unhappy in that situation, like, I'm not going to bring it to a lot of people. I'm not going to come and like drop it at people's feet and be like, oh, listen to me and how unhappy I am. And if I've ever done that, like it's been really uncomfortable for me. It's not natural to me. Anyway, but regardless, I was thinking about a conflict I'd had with a young woman I knew recently who had, who I'd warned about something. Like I asked her not to do something, and I like when she was telling me about like kind of her behavior, and I was like, what she was getting involved in, and I was like, being very much like, I guess, maternal. Maternal would be a good way of putting it. Like I was feeling maternal towards this young woman, and I was like, being very much like, you don't want to do this, da 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 da. Like this is gonna be like, I was just like laying out like all the problems that were gonna come to her from it. She did it anyway, of course. She didn't listen. She didn't, take any heed to what I said, and she was like, and it ends up blowing up in her face, and then she comes to tell me about it, and I'm like, I was upset, about it, and she was like, I'm sorry, I should have listened to you, and I'm like, well, you did listen to me. You listened to every word I said. You heard, you were listening to the whole thing, but you weren't hearing me. Like you did not hear me. because it doesn't really matter what words I said. You weren't hearing where I was coming from. You weren't like you didn't feel me. You know what I mean? Which is what was more important to me than anything else. It's like, I don't need you to like hang on every word that I'm saying. I need you to hear the spirit that it's coming from. And like, if it's a spirit of caution and protection, like I would want someone to hear that. Ugh. So I think that to me is the kind of like the difference between listening and hearing. Listening is being more active, you know, you hear every word and you kind of like put it all together, you process it. But hearing is more like you may not hang on every word, you may not understand everything that's being said, but you get the most important things and you get kind of the heart and the feeling of it. But anyway, interesting difference. Okay, y'all been chatting again. How is the ego? The ego will keep you living in sin and justifying it. Yes, it will. Oh, yes, it will. Mm. Okay, so this is electric universe theory. Oh my goodness. Oh my goodness. You've seen figures form out of thin air. Well, I have too. That's interesting. But I wonder what you mean. Okay, I've seen things like that too. This is interesting. We can get into that, the spiritual realm. I lived in a house that like had a lot of that kind of activity, and it actually ended up getting really bad before I moved. Actually, it really kicked up like in the months before I developed the disease that I ended up getting. So like it's very interesting stuff, but I saw multiple like times in that house, like different, and I wasn't the only one who saw things like, and it wasn't just seeing things. There were also things like moved. Okay, so like I've probably talked about this on the channel before, different times, different lives, but I haven't talked about them with you. So, but let me tell you, I lived in that house for about 6 years. And the first night I moved into that house and actually like slept in the house, I woke up in the middle of the night and I just had this feeling like that there was a presence there. I didn't see anything. And it wasn't the first time I've had experiences like that where, you know, I just have a sense that you're like either being watched. I felt like I was being watched all the time, like in that house. Well, not all the time, but in like, especially like at night, if I was in the living room by myself, I hated it because I felt like I was being watched. It was really creepy. But anyway, yeah, the first night I slept in that house, I woke up in the middle of the night. I felt this presence and I didn't like the presence. I know it was kind of like trying to spook me. So I sit up in bed, you know, I'm like laying, I don't even think I had a bed at the time. I think I was sleeping on the floor. I was young. I was like 20. Okay. So I got up, you know, or I didn't get up, but I like sat up. And then my blankets that were on me started like, it was like something was at the bottom, you know, or at my feet or something, started getting like pulled off of me. Like they started just coming off of me like that. Like somebody was yanking it off of me, not quickly, but slowly. And I like grabbed the blanket back, like I'm watching it like move off of me. I like grab it back and I was like, just like said, I was like, don't mess with me. I was like, I don't care if you're here, but don't mess with me. And then I ended up like going back to bed, but that was like a weird experience. And then, yeah, I had those kind of experiences where like I felt like I was being watched sometimes. And then, like, one night late at night, I got up to, like, go to the bathroom in the middle of the night. And I think I didn't turn on the light or something because it was close to, like, I didn't need to. There was enough light that came in from outside. But yeah, I did my business and I like was washing my hands, and obviously like I looked in the mirror and my face was not my face. It was someone else's face in the mirror. That was, and I just like screamed. Like I screamed, like just like woke up everyone in the house, like, and I was just like so kind of like stunned by that because it was just weird. Okay. Um, then I had a friend actually stay with me for like a couple weeks, and he was it was so interesting. He was kind of like crazy at the time. He was like a friend from Alaska, and he was into ghost hunting. And he like the second night he was there, I was like in the kitchen or something, like cooking for him and my roommate, and because she and I like cooked together a lot. But yeah, he like started running through the house, and he's like talking about how he just saw a shadow being. Now, I never saw any shadow beings in the house, but I definitely got the feeling of them. Like I definitely got that kind of vibe and feeling. And so he's like, I just saw a shadow being run through the hall, like, and run like down the stairs to where my bedroom was, because my bedroom was in the basement at the time. And he's like, telling me that he just saw like a head pop out of like because there was a door down to the basement, and then the light was on to the basement, but he's like, I just saw a head popped out, and I was like, okay. And at the time I was kind of like into atheism, so even though I'd had weird experiences in the house, I was just kind of like, I wasn't listening to him, I was ignoring him. So he's going through my house chasing these ghosts. um, that's what I called it at the time. And he has his little recorder thing. Like he had this little recorder that he would use to make or to like record. He would like talk into it and then like record to see if there was sounds picked up. And he was like convinced he was picking up sounds, but I was just kind of like being skeptical about it. And then he told me that he had seen an apparition of a woman in the house, like a woman that um he said he saw like a middle-aged Hispanic woman. Like he thought she looked Hispanic, and she was kind of matronly. She had on like an apron, kind of old-fashioned. And then he kind of was looking around the house, and he was just showing me things. He was I would say he was autistic, like this friend of mine, which I didn't really understand at the time. Like, so he was, but he was showing me, he's like, this house has caught on fire before. And he was showing me like the evidence of it. He opened up like a door and was showing me where there was like burn marks. And then I was like, oh, that's interesting. So, ooh, that is spooky. Oh, yeah, yeah, yeah. Okay, so y'all are into this conversation, right? You want to hear me tell more like things I saw, right? Okay. So, um, yeah, I didn't take him very seriously about it. And like I said, I never saw any like shadows, because that would probably freak me out. I had seen it. I had seen like shadows at other times, and I'd had other like paranormal experiences as a child. Um, but yeah, one night, this is an interesting one. Like I said, I did have that feeling of being watched a lot, and I did not like it. It did not feel good, you know. It wasn't like a loving presence that was watching me. Um, so one night, I had this other really interesting experience in the middle of the night. I had this. I would sometimes like I would have really commonly like my bed would shake. Like it was really common that I would wake up in the middle of the night to my bed shaking and or like vibrating. I'm sure other people have had that, and I was looking it up, and it was like saying that it could be like astral projection. But I've astrally projected. I have astrally projected a couple of times, and that experience is nothing like what I was experiencing. Like I did not like it. It was really uncomfortable. It was really frightening, you know? Um, yeah, I'd forgotten about that happening. I've had my bed shake a number of times, like very commonly. Sometimes it was like regular, like almost every night. Um, but one night I had this feeling like I was being exposed to serious radiation. Like, I don't even know how to tell you. Like, I was laying in bed one night and it was a full moon. Sometimes I get impacted by the moon, and the moon would like come into my window. Um, when I was in the basement, I had some windows in the basement, and just where my bed was positioned, there was this small window kind of at the top of the the room next to where my bed was. And so every now and then the moon, when it was full, would like illuminate, there. And also there were street lights. It was like not a, it was in the city, it wasn't like in the heart of the city, but it was, in a pretty well lit neighborhood with like major roads coming through. Um, so okay, like I'm laying in bed and I can't sleep, and I just get this feeling of like, it was lasting for a while. I was like laying on my stomach and I just felt like radiation, radiation, radiation. I was just kind of like, I don't know how else to describe it. Like it just felt like radiation, and I like was so uncomfortable, and I'm like laying there and I'm like, I I ended up eventually like rolling over because like I was more facing towards the window. So I thought maybe the moon was just being really intense, and impacting me. But like I rolled over and I saw this little, like perfectly round silver. I don't know how to describe it. It was like in my room, and it was like a round silver light, like, and it was illuminating itself. It was like illuminating from itself. And I realized that was why I was feeling radiated, that this thing was where it was coming from. And like I rolled over, I spot this thing, and I look at it for a moment, and it's just still like doing its thing. And then I swear to God, the thing recognized that I was seeing it. It's like as soon as it saw me and recognized that I saw it, like there was that like little moment of like, I swear it had a consciousness. So like it recognized that I spotted it, and that thing just like darted into my closet, and it made a snap. It like made this loud snap when it hit the wall and disappeared. And I was like, oh hell no. I was like, what just happened? Like that was like one of the more spooky experiences that I'd had in that house. Like, that wasn't even, I mean, thinking back on it now, I think I was dealing with elemental kind of spirits. Like, jinn or fairies or that kind of thing. Yeah, and I'll tell one more experience. The really scary ones. So I was dreaming one night. Like I was dreaming one night, and I was walking down the sidewalk in my dream. I was just walking down the sidewalk, and this figure walks past me. It was like a kind of like dark figure, like walked past me, like, and I just had this like in my dream, I had this realization like that should not be there. I'm like, wait a minute, you're not supposed to be here. And then all of a sudden, I'm woken up, and there's this thing on me. Like, I don't know how else to describe it, but like this thing is like hurting me. Like, it's holding me, it's hurting me. It's like, like, I don't know how else to describe it. Like, I was, so I somehow, I don't even know how I did this. And like, I was so like, I don't even know like physically how, but I ended up like just jumping up. Like I just like jumped up. Okay. I jumped up, and like I was like crouching in my bed like this, and I see this big shadow. Like I didn't see it when it was on me, but I see this big shadow run across the room, and then it just kind of stopped, and it's like across the room. And I made it out, like I could make out the image of it. It was like kind of blurry and dark from the bottom, but it had this like, it had horns, and it had like, it was see through. Like I could see through it. It was like, kind of see, like I could see what was behind it, but I could still make out the figure. And its eyes were like a like orangey color. And I just like stared at it until it eventually kind of like disappeared, but it was like pixelated how it disappeared. And then I started like I couldn't sleep after that because I was getting attacked by it regularly. Okay, so this was like an ongoing problem, and I didn't see it every time, but I knew it was there, and I was like getting frightened. And this is actually, just to answer your question, Amy, this is when I got interested in the occult because of these experiences. These experiences are what drove me into actually becoming interested in researching the occult. Because before then, I mean, I did dabble when I was like a teen girl in like witchcraft and that kind of thing. And maybe that had something to do with it. But I also think that I do have some kind of psychic abilities. So I do think that I mean, I've seen a lot of things over the years. So this is just the beginning of things. And, I do have on my mom's side, there's quite a few people who are like empaths. And I don't mean that like, that it just means that they like have this kind of sense, like they're able to sense and discern, or I guess I would say discern spirits. So like how I see them, or how I've seen them with my eyes, but most of the time I see them in my mind's eye. So I'll feel a presence, and I may not see it, but if I look, or I may look, like for example, I might like look out, into a room, and I don't see it with my eye, but in my mind I can see it perfectly what's there. It's or I can communicate with it, or it might communicate with me. So this is kind of where that began, where I got into this stuff, because I was like looking for protection. I was looking for protection. Because it was frightening, and like, when you can't sleep, and you're being attacked, and my health went downhill very rapidly after this experience, and that's when I developed the condition that I have now. So I think it's kind of interesting that all happened. So I saw that figure appear again when I was in the living room. And I was talking to my roommate at the time about it. And she just thought I was crazy because I was telling her about like what I've been going through. And she just was like, okay, whatever. And then I started to see, like, I'm sitting in the chair in the living room, and then like I'm talking to her, she's kind of sitting from, apart from me, and then I'm like, okay, you're not going to believe this, but I can see the thing now. And she's like, well, why can't I see it? And I was like, I don't know, but I saw it literally with my mind's eye. um I'll get to the chat before I kind of go on about, I don't know if I'm going to talk about, hey, baby, what you doing? That not safe. That was not safe. That was not safe. You can't jump up on my leg like that. You could have scratched me. You could have hurt me. That was not safe. But now I have lots of protection because I got my kitty. He loved me. He protected me so good. Seriously, if you struggle with these things, get a little black cat or a black dog. But these little creatures, very, very protective. Like, yeah, I believe I'm a black cat supremacist. They're naturally protective and they ward off evil spirits. Don't you? You protect mama, don't you? Yes, you do. What a good boy. You protecting me? What a good boy. Okay. Please get down, please. Will you please get down? I love you. Please get down. You don't want me talking about it. Is it scary? Oh, it's scary. Scary. It's scary. It's so scary. Oh my God, it's scary. Okay, baby, go, go, go. Okay, go, go, go. Come on. Come on. Baby, I have a lot in my lap. Okay, baby, I know. Give me a moment, y'all. We having a power struggle right now. Come on, baby. Oh, you want to be on me so bad, but look, there's no room. There's no room. Why you, oh, baby? You pushing me around. I don't like getting pushed around by you. Okay, we know who the leader of the house is. It's the kitty. The kitty. The kitty protect me. All right, y'all been chatting, so I'm gonna catch up. Yup. I mean, the okay, so let's see. Sorry, I'm just scrolling up. Okay, Santina's been through it too. I don't think I've experienced anything through scent. Like, I don't. I know that they can. I know that certain spirits do, like, kind of come with a smell, but I haven't really experienced that too, in my own life. Yeah, I find I don't really have these experiences now. I mean, sometimes I do, but I notice too, like, especially since I started doing the silent prayer, like, I've noticed, especially like late at night, if I wake up in the middle of the night, sometimes, I'll just be observing my thoughts, and when I recognize they're not there, or that they're not mine, when I recognize that the thoughts that come into my head aren't mine, or like I'll hear something, because they like to say things to me that put me down sometimes, just like little put downs. And then I hear that and I'm like, that wasn't me. And then when they recognize that I've recognized it, then they start like just going off. Like, I'll hear like all kinds of stuff, just like all at once. That's happened a couple of times when I recognize them. So that power, that silent prayer is powerful. Like, because I've been, dealing with the stuff for years and been, I haven't had any experiences like I did, like these horrible experiences. I've been pretty protected for a long time. But, well, I don't want to say pretty protected because, man, I'm going to tell you all about something really spooky I saw. I'll tell you about that. I'm kind of excited about that. We'll save that for a little bit, though. Catching up with the chat. Ooh, that's spooky. Seeing the indents. Yeah, stuff like that is very spooky. Yeah, I don't believe in aliens though. That's the thing. I believe that aliens are interdimensional beings and they're either like elemental spirits or like some kind of demonic entity. Um, I kind of like differentiate between demons and elementals because I don't know. I just do. Because I think they have different abilities. And I do know that, like, as far as the elemental races are concerned, some of them are saved, as it were. Some of them are followers of Christ. So I feel like maybe that's just kind of like to my, I believe, and I have, when I first like even went to my church, actually when I was first started going to my church, I had an experience with an elemental spirit in the church. It was a little fairy, and it was basically like telling me it was happy that I was there. She was like dancing around me, and she was like kind of just excited that I was there. So I do know that like members of those races are and can be Christian or saved, or they have different religious beliefs, but a lot of them, don't like humans and do anything they can to, destroy us. Um, oh God. I have a Ouija board actually that I haven't gotten rid of. I've only used it like once or twice. And I didn't really like it. Like I didn't find it. I just I had one like cool experience with it. And then after that I was like I went to use it again and I was like, this isn't really my bag. This isn't really what I want to do. So yeah, I will when I get rid of my all of my paraphernalia, that'll be going. It was gifted to me by an ex. Yes, they do. Yes, they do. So yeah, I had this experience with an ex of mine as well. So like the ex that gave me the Ouija board. All right, baby. Mama wants. Yeah, I can't hold you. I can't hold you right now. I love you though. I love you. So my ex that gave me the Ouija board, she was possessed. Very, very badly. Very, very, very possessed woman. She ended up like transitioning uh, after we got together, which I was like very much opposed to. I mean, we broke up at the time that she actually was like doing it, but we still were living together because, it was just like a very messy situation. Like, so she was insane. Like, I'd never seen, she was tiny. She was like just tiny, barely 100 pounds. Um, and she had this like superhuman strength. And she would like, she was so vile, like, and violent and crazy. Like, it didn't make any sense. It would come out of nowhere. And like, I remember waking up in the middle of the night one night and I was, okay, like, I had started working with like the Santa Muerte at the time. She had become this like, figure to me. as modern day pagans and practitioners of witchcraft will work with different spirits from different traditions. But she appeared to me. I started working with her because I'd seen a full bodied apparition of her appear to me in my room. And I believed in her. So, and I still do. Like, death is real. It's a real phenomenon. So I created an altar for her in my home at the time. And, I would give her gifts of like chocolate or like whatever. I remember waking up in the middle of the night one night, like we had just gotten together. She'd like moved into my home and she was eating the chocolate that I'd left for this spirit. And I was like, you really don't want to do that. And she turns to me like, and she has this like scariest, like creepiest look on her face. And she's like, your delusions are not my delusions. And then she just went back and like just mindlessly shoving this like chocolate in her mouth that, mind you, had been sitting there forever and it had like incense smoke on it and like all kinds of other things. So it was like gross, She was eating an offering that I gave to death, literally. Like, but yeah, so she had like really, really crazy things like just happen. She was, like I said, she was violent out of nowhere. Eventually, like she did like mellow out, but there were like several times that like she assaulted me and I had to like call the cops on her and she got like locked up and put in like the loony bin a couple of times. And, she just had no concern or care about her own physical safety. But there were a couple of times when she would like, when she would get into these like states that her little eyes would go black. Like her eyes went black. And she had hazel eyes. And like she would just be talking to me and I would see this like complete darkness come over her and her eyes would go black. And I would just be like, and I was trying everything. Like I was doing like all kinds of like rituals. Like I was going through the house, like chanting, doing different things. But I really could not fight any of the demons in her. Like what I had just wouldn't give. And then eventually it ended up coming to like a stalemate between us. And like, we just decided that we weren't going to have a romantic relationship. But we were going to continue living together like a couple of weirdos. And it's very common with lesbians. It's so ghetto. Like when I look back now, my mentality was so disturbed. I kind of wanted to talk about that too, because like, I talked about my experiences of like being in and organizing with like different leftist groups, but I didn't talk about like the lesbian activism and like the lesbian identity as well that I took on like in my mid-20s. It was dark, like very dark. And man, like just she wasn't the only woman I was with that like had serious like I want to say like she wasn't the only woman that I had like a relationship with that like I recognized that there was something like spiritually wrong with her. Actually, all of them had something spiritually wrong with them, like because I had something spiritually wrong with me. But I mean, I don't think to the same extent they did, but because I don't want to get into that too much, but like there would be like really just I don't know, like just the change in like when you see a person's face change and like their eyes change, like it's scary. It is scary to witness and like they're not even themselves. And who are they anyway? I don't know. So yeah, you talking about this kind of like just oh, that's nice. You got a black cat that visits you. They do, but if you that only works though if you have this Holy Spirit in you. Because like when I was going through that like years ago in my old house, like with like the attacks, like I was calling on Jesus, but Jesus was not coming, and that's because I was like I was not. You can't say the Lord's name in vain. You know what I mean? You can't call on the Lord in vain. Like if He doesn't know you, I don't want to say He didn't know me. He did, but like, uh, yeah, I just whew, doesn't always work. It's like if you don't believe in Him, like why are you calling on Him? Ooh, and it was like another language. Yeah, I know. It's well, that's the thing. Like, and I was when I was talking with my pastor about like getting rid of like my paraphernalia and how I was like concerned about it. Like, the devil was messing with my head and making me think like, oh, you have this in your house. Like, it's gonna, it's gonna be displeasing to the Lord or that kind of thing. The Lord's gonna like not want you. And I'm like, or I don't even know what it was like, or something like because I did become convicted that I had to like stop my practices. It was a process. Like I was still going to church at first when I was still reading like tarot for different clients when I started going to church, but then it kind of came to a point where I was like, I can't do this anymore. But then like a year later, I still have my like collection and that kind of thing. So yeah, I was talking with him and he was like talking about like how when you become a citizen of God's kingdom, that other realm, like it can jab you, it can like throw things at you, it can like mess with you, but it can't, it's not gonna, it can't take you. And I was like, well, I'm not really worried about that because I know that evil doesn't have any real power. I know it's weak. I know that evil is weak. It's very weak. Like, and that's kind of like it's a weak spirit. And that's why it always loses because in the end it's powered by a much weaker source. So yeah, I'm glad that I know I still have the thoughts. Like I had the thoughts come in earlier today. I was like, yeah, I know. Yeah, I don't go looking. Yes, he is. Oh, that's cool. Flying dreams are pretty amazing. Yeah, I know. It's always why is it always the tiniest women that are the like most violent and craziest? Have you noticed that? Like they'll be like emaciated. They'll be like 5 foot tall, not even 100 pounds, and they have this like superhuman demonic strength in them. Like, and they can just like, and I'm like, how, and I was big at the time. Like I was big. I was like, how is she, this person, like overpowering me? How is this tiny person overpowering me? But she could. This is an interesting thing to say. Like, you know, yeah, I haven't seen her. She lives near. I mean, we came here together and like lived together here for a couple of years and until we like eventually like she got her own place and got set up, and is doing her own life now. But yeah, she was definitely a vampire. I would say that. I think that's a real thing. We can talk about vampires because I've encountered a number of them. You know, I've even had people like a lot of them even like will tell you straight up, I'm a vampire. It's quite interesting. Like that's a devil spirit. That's a demon. You know, for real. But she, you know, I just I wish her well. You know, I had love for that woman. I did. Like it was a fallen state, but you know, the amount of time I did care about her. Like when it came down to it, I did care about her, and I did see I did see her. You know, the human in her. But she, I would say I didn't want to say she wasn't human at all, but she was very much. She wasn't running the show. She would get these little peaks that would come out. Her like little self would come out, you know, and then it would just like it's like something out of a movie. I don't know how else to describe it. Her little sweet self would come out, you know, this fear person that was like so traumatized and disturbed and her I mean she'd been through hell in her life as well. And that's often the case with lesbians, you know, and I kind of think about that, you know, most of the women that I, you know, was involved with, and not that I was involved with a lot, but you know, I was involved with a few, like they all had serious like traumas, demons, like and just disturbed experiences. Me too, you know. I'm not to that I don't know. I don't think of it that way anymore. Like at the time I did because I was just like identifying with, you know, all my pain and my victimhood that like eventually I overcame it, you know. Yeah, I don't like anger. I don't like being around angry people. I don't, and yeah, it is a spirit. Hmm. Yeah, well, you don't need to. That's the thing. That's like, I never like, I don't have any desire in me to like be angry or violent or raise my voice or like, I can get, I don't know, like the most I get will be like irritated with people. And then I just kind of like, once I notice that feeling come upon me, then I kind of pivot to like, okay, how do I notice this is coming up. Like, what do I do in this situation to like, you know, either let that go or just deal with it in the right way, you know? Yeah, that's right. No, God's with us the whole time. This is interesting. Yeah, you are not anger. Yeah, I mean, it was like it took years because I had these little glimpses of awareness. I would like meditate, and I was like interested in all this, you know, esoteric spiritual literature, and I had this like I had some awareness that I was not my thoughts and my feelings. I am not my thought. I remember like years ago, like just being like, I am not my thoughts. I am not my feelings. I am not my thoughts. I'm not my feelings. Like just kind of like having that awareness. And I think that really was when I started to like have the shifts come, you know, once I started to recognize that like everything, but it took time to let go of all the false ego and the identities. It wasn't quick, you know, it was like years of work to like, okay, I'm shedding this skin, okay, I'm shedding that one. And like shedding the like lesbian thing was like really like very traumatic, I would say, because, you know, it had been so important to me. Like and we're taught to like it becomes so we're taught to like in this culture view our sexuality or like our sexual behavior as like or our attraction as like who we are, you know. And I always knew that was false. Like I wasn't one of these like born this way kind of people, and I actually had a lot of conflict in my activism and in my personal relationships because I didn't believe that I believe that, being gay or being lesbian is a choice, or being bisexual, whatever, it's a choice. I always like stuck to that. I believed it then and I believe it now. And people still have a problem with me for that. Like, because they don't want to, I think they don't understand like what that means to a certain degree. Um, Because for me, I was just like, well, this is the better choice. This is the best choice. Well, it wasn't the best choice or the better choice. It was literally hell. Every, like, it was hell. The most loving, like, kind of relationships I had when I was like living, I guess, that lifestyle or whatever you want to call it, weren't sexual relationships. They were friendships. And as I kind of came out of that and realized that like I couldn't live that life, um, I recognize that I do have this like love for women. I do love women. I do want women to overcome. I do empathize with women, the traumas they go through, their struggles in the world. I am a woman. I love being around women. I love what women do. We have this like quality about us that is incredible, that just adds life to everything. I will always love women, but I think that it's about loving women in the right way. And I wasn't loving women in the right way. I wasn't even loving women. When I was trying to like be in relationships with women and have like romance and love and all of that wasn't love. It wasn't the most loving thing. And I just had this kind of recognition like, well, if I really want to love women, I need to do it in the right way, which is to like take all of that passion and like that, all of that energy out of it, because it's not real love. And like a lot of women, I think, are addicted to that kind of thing. And that's part of what attracts them to like lesbianism as well, because lesbians are always like, lesbians are so much more passionate, we have so much more passion, and the love is, and it's just so explosive, and like women I was with like were just addicted to that, and they couldn't really handle the fact that I wasn't like that. Like I had a number of like, well, I don't want to say a number, but like my really crazy ex that I had mentioned, like she told me a number of times that I was like a man because I wasn't like as passionate or as exciting or whatever as she was, or not as into the like BS as she was, basically. But anyway, whatever. She was just there to abuse me. She was just a demon sent to like abuse me and derail my life, ultimately. That's how I kind of see it. Like, I have love for that person, but I also like recognize the evil that was in there. Well, this is an interesting comment. It's true though, they do. Like, I totally get what you're saying, because like they utilize that collective trauma, like the trauma of women, the trauma of like, whatever minority you identify as, like the feelings of, victimhood that people have, they utilize that to, in some way, um, it's a way that they maintain their power, because people have, like, again, the false identity based on a shared sense of victimhood. So yeah, I agree with you. Yeah, I would say she did a lot. She has done a lot of work on herself, but as human beings, we can only do so much work on ourselves. It can only go so far. We do need God to like help us. Like, you know what I mean? We can only lift so much ourselves. And I found that in my life. Like, I could only do so much on my own before I like really needed to, to ask God to step in and to do the rest for me. So she has mellowed out, but I also, to say this, as I stated, she got into the trans thing and she transed out. And I think that when she got put on testosterone, it kind of mellowed her out. And I honestly think that, I honestly think that this is a way that they're treating certain like disorders, like personality disorders, and um, like just behavioral issues in the population. It's just another form of like medical gynecological misogyny that's been adapted for a new era. Like they're treating uncontrollable women with like testosterone. And if you notice that with a lot of the like female transitioners, they often will, have been diagnosed with, if they have had that kind of um, history, they will have been diagnosed with like personality disorders as well, and male transitioners too. But I do think that like it's specifically a way that they it's just it's a form of castration, control. And we do it with animals, don't we? Like my cat, he was cut. I'm sorry, baby, I'm talking about you. But I didn't want him spraying all over my house and being a nasty little tomcat. So his nuts had to go. And I think this is a way that, like, in the human population, like they are um, maybe controlling certain people, by like castrating them. But I would say she's mellowed out quite a bit, and like when I've run into her, we've been able to be like civil and like kind to one another, and show each other respect. Yeah, I mean, it was hateful. It wasn't love. But I have love for her now. I have love for her now. You know what I mean? So at the time, and I think to a certain extent, I did have love for her then too, because I had such like, I wanted her best. Yeah, it's hard to say. It's hard to say, but all you can do is just love people now. You can say maybe when you were together you didn't love each other, but now it's like, now that you're apart and that you have like this kind of understanding of things in yourself, you can kind of be more loving. Sometimes the most loving thing we can do with someone is just to like let them go, go do their thing and we do ours. And and just to like, I mean, love them in a Christian sense, love them in the sense that they're, a human being and you understand what they're going through. Right. This is totally it. Yeah, it's totally it. We are. We're attracted to what's familiar. It's like, Jesse talks about, men being attracted to the mother spirit or the spirit that's in their mother. It's true. People are attracted to what's familiar. They're attracted to like, and if, what you experienced growing up was like whatever, abusive or crazy, or like, I saw it with my dad too. My dad had serious like mama trauma, and it like caused him to like want to rescue every single woman he met. And he could not be attracted to a healthy woman. Like seriously, every woman he was attracted to, every woman that he got serious with had like something seriously wrong. And anytime a nice woman who was like together and normal came into his life, he just wasn't attracted to her. He just couldn't do it. you know it's kind of hilarious, and then it's kind of funny that I have the same issue, like, too. It's so funny, like, even though I witnessed it growing up, we just end up repeating the same patterns, in the fallen state that we're in. If our parents were in a fallen state, we have even more likelihood of mimicking their behavior. It's wild. It is wild. to like wake up and like come to awareness about it. And it just irritates me that like I had to go through it a number of times before I kind of like was like, oh, I'm in hell again. How did we get here? How did I go back down into hell? We were doing okay, and now I'm in hell. Yeah, we getting deep tonight. I'm surprised. Yeah, I try. I don't have any regrets. You know, I learned. I learned what I learned. I had to learn. You know. Yeah, I know. No, I know. It wasn't. It wasn't. It wasn't that kind of thing. Like when I say I love her, I love her now. You know, and there was always a light in me. There was always a light in me. The darkness is attracted to the light as well. You know, there is something to that. The darkness is attracted to the light, just like the light is sometimes attracted to the darkness. There is some of that. You know, there was a light in me that wanted to love her, but I couldn't because we weren't going about it in the right way. You know, I don't know. I understand what you're saying though. Like what we had, that kind of relationship was not love. It wasn't. It wasn't. But now in retrospect, as I look back at my life and I think about this person who I shared like a couple of years with, I do have love for her now. You know, I do wish her well, you know, and I do want the best for her, but you know, that it's not the same kind of thing. It's like, you know, I don't even like that kind of thing, you know. I don't even like that kind of thing, all that excitement and drama. Ugh. um well, what is a sexual orientation? I don't really believe in sexual orientation. Okay, so like the concept of sexual orientation is something that I question. So to say I don't believe in heterosexuality because that's just a word, you know, that's just another false identity. It's not a real thing, you know. Um, Heterosexual is and homosexual are just like two labels that we put on human behavior and choices. I don't see, yeah, I don't know. I don't see it as like an innate thing, maybe, or I don't know. Innate isn't the word I'm looking for. So yeah, I wouldn't say natural. Natural. The word natural. Everything is natural. Going against nature is part of nature. So to say natural, like I've seen male dogs hump each other, like, or like I've seen, you know, natural is not the word I would use, right? Natural, like in nature, sex and relationships happen. You know, as you say, it's nature. It's of course it's part of nature. So no, I wouldn't say it's not natural, but would I say like I don't know if I'm getting at what you're asking exactly. Like natural isn't the word I would use. And again, I don't really believe in sexual orientation. So yeah, it is. It is. Yeah, yeah. Yeah. Passion is eh, it's just another thrill, isn't it? It's just another thrill that we're chasing. It's just a little bit more excitement. Elaborate more on sexuality being a choice. So who you choose to sleep with and who you choose to have relationships with is a choice. That's what I mean by that. So that's all it means. It means, when it's what you choose to do, the choices you make is a choice. That's what it means. So if I choose to sleep with someone, that's a choice. That's what I mean by it. Exactly, exactly. Because yeah, I was all, the radical feminism. This is how I'm going to be the best feminist ever. Like F men. Like we're going to have a women only like world, and it's going to be perfect. And crazy. And like every time I was like in a women only space, because I wasn't, I participated in like women only communities quite a bit. It was hell. Like women were just abusing the hell out of each other left and right. Ugh. So I remember in a chat, like a recent, I don't know if it was you or someone else, but yeah, I had mentioned that like Taylor Swift was bisexual. And someone in the chat was like, all women are bisexual. I was like, yeah, I guess we are. I don't know. Again, that's just another false identity, though. Like bisexual, it's just a false identity. It's not a real, it's not who we are. But yeah, I would say we do, yeah, emotional warfare. I mean, and just what we're looking for too. And I mean, and women are like I don't know. Attraction is like, it's weird, it comes up for different things, and we want different things. And like women have like mama trauma too. Women often are like craving, I know for me, I was craving a mother's love. I was craving a woman's affection. I never had that, you know growing up. It was very difficult for me to like deal with never having really been mothered. I still struggle, with the effects of that. I still like sometimes, I want that to a certain degree, but I know it's not something that someone else can really give me or do for me. And I think that was another thing I was kind of looking for. I was looking for like a woman's love and validation, because I didn't have it. I don't know. This is interesting. Our gay, I mean, I'm thinking about like the gay men I know. Are a lot of them raised by single mothers? I think it's about like half and half. I don't think it's. I don't know. I don't think it's so like they're raised by single mothers more than not. Men raised by single mothers are a mess. That's a mess. Men not having a man in the house is just a mess. Hmm. I suppose. I suppose that's true. I mean, until we overcome our ego and we understand what love actually is. Because I don't want that. I want some boring love. I want some boring love. You know what I mean? I'm all about that. Okay, Sophia. Yeah, I should harp on it too. I do sometimes harp on it. Yeah, I don't know. Using labels, I don't know. I can't for myself anymore. Like I don't put, it was so traumatizing for me. It was so traumatizing for me to have that identity, that label, that identity take over my life. It really was. And um, yeah, it wasn't good for me. So I'm very like, once I kind of came out of it, and realized that I did not want to live that way, and also realized that, that's not what God wants for me either. It's not, it is, it's not going to work. It's always going to leave me wanting. Once I realized that, I can't use labels like that anymore. Like bisexual, like some people might label me that, and if that helps them understand me as a human being, okay. Like, and sure, I think human beings, you go off of their behavior. What is their behavior? But like, for me, it's just another word that doesn't really define who I am or what I am. And I'm not, again, like, I'm not interested in that anymore. I'm interested in living a chaste life. I'm only interested in like having, um, you know, that kind of energy expressed like under like the covenant of a marriage. Other than that, I'm not interested because it's too much to get sucked into otherwise. It's too much, it's too dangerous, it's not loving otherwise. Yeah, I know. I know. Oh, Matthew, that's funny. That's funny. I don't know what you're responding to. That's right. Good for you, girl. I don't know what you're encouraging me about, but I appreciate the encouragement. Okay, so let me tell you about another spooky like thing I experienced, like a vision I had. No, I mean that's again, like I think that's too, like we don't talk about the trauma that men go through in relationships with women either. Like, but I'm kind of glad that I had the experience I had of like identifying as a lesbian, because honestly, it opened me up to understand what men go through with women, and like how unreasonable women are, how violent women can be, how brutal and cunning we can be. Because before I went in, before I like, as I was kind of going into like that, I was, again, it was political. I was a political lesbian. I was radicalized. Through like I became a radical feminist. I got into like the lesbian separatism. I thought this is the way, we're gonna deal with like the issue of male violence and all of that. So I was naive. I was very naive. And even though like I'd seen my dad like with his girlfriends and the struggles he had, and even knowing kind of my mother and that kind of thing, it never really clicked for me that like there is a real dark side to women's nature, that we don't talk about. And like women, especially in this like male bashing and, male bashing, feminist supposed era, we have this idea of women as being kind of like, saintly, or we have this kind of attitude that women are without fault, or like women are victims and men are the oppressors of women. You know what I mean? So like all of that BS really had me blinded going in. So like I'm kind of grateful that I did have my eyes opened to the reality, to the reality that women can be like very horrible to deal with and like abusive, even like women are very, a lot of women, especially like if men are in the fallen state with women, we can be horrible to deal with. We can be very evil, and wreck men, So I just, I can't even like, and I'm not saying that to discount like again the dark side of men too, because the dark side of men is horrible. Like I wasn't, the things that I was exposed to that made me like angry at men, those were real too. I'm putting that out there, like, but the issue is a spiritual one, and really understanding that and coming to that realization that this is a spiritual issue. It's not a sex issue. It's not a race issue. It's not a system issue. At the ultimate day, it's like our characters and who we are, and if we've like overcome evil within ourselves or not. And most people haven't. That's just the reality. Most people have not overcome evil within themselves. So if we haven't, like, the fruit of our lives is going to bear evil. But anyway, this is interesting. Can you elaborate? What does it mean to level? Well, no, you know what? That's true. Women can be very destructive. And that's how I was being. Like, I was all caught up in this, like, destruction mentality, tear it down mentality, revolution mentality. Instead of, like, what I should have been building, I think women can build, but, like, we have to have the right spirit in us to do it, which means we have to get rid of that mama spirit. So communists I've met, what they think of the alphabet community. This is interesting. Well, let's just say this. Russia is not a communist society anymore. Russia has not been communist in 30 years. So their kind of issues with the LGBT community or the alphabet people are, I would say, different, or they're coming from a different place than communism. Most Western communists support the alphabet community, like it's a part of their platform. There are some that make it less of an issue. They may be supportive, but they don't center it. They focus more on like class as their main issue, and they don't see it as being as important. So there are those communists that are like, this is a secondary issue. These problems of inequality will be resolved if we, their idea is that if we establish like the communist state, then, these problems that we have in society of inequality and a lack of justice will resolve themselves because we're going to be, made into, equals, essentially. So that's kind of their mentality. I can't speak as much to China. I have met some Chinese communists. I have, actually from China, I met a woman who was part of, she had come to the Radical Women Conference, actually. She was fascinated to meet me, too. She wanted to talk to me, but her English wasn't amazing, and my Chinese is not, I don't speak any Chinese or any Mandarin. But she was like very confused because she had been told that like all Westerners, all Americans at least, she believed that all Americans were anti-communist. So she was really confused about how, I was young, because I was like in my early 20s at the time. She's like, how is it that she's like, we're told that you're completely brainwashed against us, and like that And I was like, well, we are in our, education system. They do kind of, misrepresent the history of communism. They don't really give fair depictions of like the Cultural Revolution, that kind of thing, or like not just the Cultural Revolution. The Cultural Revolution was a mess. But like the Chinese Revolution overall, or the Russian Revolution, most Americans don't know anything about these things, and it's actually like, or any kind of socialist or communist revolution. So I had these conversations with her, um, but yeah, she still really couldn't understand like how I got into it, and I don't know. I think I just have like that kind of, I have a radical spirit, I'm a radical period. So like I'm always trying to get to the root and understand things. And so, in a fallen state, that's going to attract someone to radical politics. Good night, Amy. Have a good night, honey. Thanks for being here. So yeah, I would say, but anyway, I'm getting off topic there. I'm just going on about that particular thing. There are, though, I mean, there is a history of persecution of homosexuals in communist, at least the main communist party, the Third International. It was a problem. Um, and there were differences. This caused splits, between the different factions within communism because there were some that supported homosexuals and there were others that didn't. And so it did become for a while, that kind of issue. I know in Russia, historically, in the Soviet Union, I should say, they did believe that like gay, yeah, so homosexual practices or people that practice that were like bourgeois in some sense. So they kind of associated it with like bourgeois decadence and, I don't know, like, so I think it's kind of a complicated thing and it's really down to the individual, but most Western communists are very supportive of the alphabet people. You know what I mean? JS Urban Adventures. You know what? I think Lord Bibby was mentioning that you would be somebody good to talk to about. What was it earlier, Lord Bibby? Remind me. But glad to see you here. I need to go back and, oh my God, what happened in here? Okay, let's see. Yeah, yeah, I know. Yeah. It's hard for me, like, too, because I do have friends from like that time period in my life, and like I see them struggling with things, and I just, you just have to let them suffer because you can't give somebody like a pill and be like, here you go, here's the answer. They have to want to overcome themselves. And yeah, it is the same spirit that causes the destructiveness. Right. Exactly. No, exactly. Men, no, plenty of destructive men out here. It's the same spirit. Destruction. The destructive spirit is the destructive spirit. It's from Satan. It's the Satan is here to destroy. Okay, so I was gonna mention like, okay, so I was gonna bring up another one of my like interesting experiences. So around the time, it was like the time of like the COVID lockdowns. Okay, so at that time I was working in a coffee shop, and we decided to close for a couple weeks. Just because everyone was sent home. It was, well, we had to close basically. There was like lockdowns basically put into effect, except for like essential services. So, at that time, I remember like, and this, I had just gotten over having COVID at that time. So I'd been like, had just gone back to work for like a week and then the lockdowns happened. So I remember like one night I got up in the middle of the night, um, to like go to the bathroom or something. And I got back in bed and I looked out my window and I saw like in the distance in the sky, there was this like cloud moving through the sky. Okay. But it was moving really fast. I was like, wow, the wind's moving really fast, but it was moving way faster than the wind would blow. And so like I'm looking out the window at this like cloud, and as it kind of comes closer, I noticed that it has like a demonic shape to it. It had like horns and like was I don't know if I can completely describe it now that I'm kind of envisioning it, but it was shaped like a devil. I don't know what else to say. And it was like charging. And then now, so that was coming through the sky and it was kind of flying, going overhead. And then behind it, there was a thick wall of like dark cloud coming in. It was like, I don't know, like I don't even know how to describe it. It was like an ocean or something, like, or not an ocean, but like a wave. But it was all like it was like a thick wall, and it was all coming at the same time, just following this like demon shaped like very fast cloud, and the clouds were like those clouds were coming really fast too, like just like a blanket over the sky. And I'm just like looking out the window, like, what the hell am I seeing? And that was around the time that I started to kind of reawaken my Christian faith. That summer was when it happened. Um, but yeah, I remember like just looking out the sky and seeing that, and it was like one of the most insane apparition type things I'd ever seen. And just to see like this wall of cloud just blanket the sky, it blanketed the whole sky, the whole sky. I don't know if anyone else saw it, but it was what I saw. And I don't know if it was a vision that I had, but like I was looking out my window at the sky and seeing this happen. It was one of the freakiest things I've ever seen. And I've seen some freaky things. Like, especially at that point in my life, really one of the freakiest things I'd ever seen. So I think that whole time that was like very serious spiritual warfare we were under. And then that like summer, um, oh God, I completely had a mental breakdown, quite frankly. But I did start reading my Bible again, and then like kind of started identifying as a Christian again, even though I didn't really understand what that meant. I had a notion of it though as like this tradition that I was a part of. I don't even know. Maybe that wasn't as exciting as I like made it sound. The demiurge. Maybe. It kind of reminded me of that. It kind of reminded me of that. Weird, huh? Like weird. It was one of the weirdest things I've ever, like, of all the apparitions, of all the things I've seen, that was like one of the most scary. It just felt like evil was coming in. And like, then of course, during the lockdowns, that's when like, the city was overrun with all of the, chaos in the country really too. Oh, just knocked over my charger thing here. Yeah, the country was overrun, but like, yeah, my city specifically was overrun with like all of the evil. And it freaked me out. I don't know. I don't know what to think about that. I know people say that. I don't really have an opinion about that. I don't know what to call the Lord. Okay, I don't know what his name is. I know what he feels like when I've been in his presence. I know what his glory feels like. I know what, and I don't think he's this, I don't think that spirit that I've felt, I don't think that spirit that I felt was, you know, the demiurge at all. Like, you know what I mean? I know that that spirit that I felt and that I've had that connection with is God and the creator, the living God that animates all of us, and that animates the world, like that thing, that whatever, it's not the same thing. I don't know if what I saw was the demiurge either. So I don't know. I don't like, yeah, Yahweh. Yahweh is the name of like the Hebrew God, right? But they have different names for him too. Like, I don't know. I don't know what I don't know about what his name is. I don't pray to Yahweh or, that kind of thing. Like, I don't, send me like Yahweh. Like, I don't know. Maybe that's the case. I don't know. I just know what I felt and seen. Yeah, people were, I mean, how could we not be in our emotional mess? Like, people lost their jobs. I mean, I didn't lose my job technically. I was able to get put into a different place to work, but like, a lot of people lost their jobs. They were stuck inside, cooped in, like, they were being traumatized on social media and all that kind of thing. Like, crazy. I don't know. Hard not to be emotional. I was a mess. Like, God, a lot of people I know are a mess. Like, a lot of people I knew, I got involved in a really stupid, very brief fling at the time. But I recognized immediately that it was bad and like cut it off, not without like a lot of personal strife to do so. But I'm glad it happened just overall because like it helps me kind of break free from the toxic mess that I was enmeshed in that I didn't have any other way to break in because like I had a fling with a man at that time. I mean, I call him a man. He was just a male. He was not a man. And like, yeah, I didn't feel comfortable like keeping it private, even though I should have. Um, so yeah, that kind of like helped break me apart from like the radical feminist lesbian community that I had been so big a part of my identity. It was really nice to like kill that identity, to like let that ego die. And it just required a bit of embarrassment on my part to do so. Um, what do I think of Christian nationalism? Um, I guess it depends, you know, because when I was growing up, I always saw like Christian nationalism as being kind of a negative thing. Um, I believe in the separation of church and state. I don't believe the church and state should be aligned specifically. I do believe that Christians should be involved in politics, though. And yeah, I guess I don't know. Like, I don't know. It's like well, I don't really know what Christian nationalism means. I don't know what their purposes or aims are. I don't believe in isms. I'll say that I don't believe in isms. So if it's got an ism at the end, I'm going to be skeptical of it. Not probably be like not supporting it. So um, yeah, I'm believe that I don't know. I don't know what the aims are of like Christian nationalists. Are they trying to establish the U.S. as like a Christian nation? I think it kind of is just historically. Although like I would like to see revival of like, and I think we are having revival actually because it's quite amazing to me how many people. It's quite amazing to me just recently how many people I've known or like just the random people you hear of is like, oh, this person's been saved, or like, oh, this person's just been baptized, this person's given their life to Christ. um I even like reconnected with an old friend recently, who I grew up around, and we hadn't spoken in several years, but she like sent me a friend request on Facebook, and she's like, yo, she's like, this is amazing. You found, God, and like I have too. Like I'm like, hell yeah, that's amazing. So like just I don't know. I think there's like revival happening. I think like God is like, picking his chosen people for his kingdom to do his work. So I don't know. This is a Christian nation. I believe in Christian values. I believe that this nation was founded like by Christians who were inspired by the morality of Christianity. But like I also believe in, the separation of church and state and a certain degree of secularism because of that. So I don't know if that answers your question. I haven't read the Gospel of Adam and Eve. I do have a copy of like the Gnostic Gospels. I love the Gospel of Thomas, and then excuse me, Gospel. Well, what we have of the Gospel of Mary Magdalene and Gospel of like um, Judas. Um, but yeah, it's like the fate. The demiurge is the false god. I think a lot of people worship the false god. It's like when Jesse, people tell people they're praying to Satan, like the woman that called today, and she's talking about, no, no, I don't pray to Satan. I'm praying to the Lord, and he's like, no, you're not. No, you're not. So I think like I do think yeah there is that force in there, and I think that's part of why. Um, I think that's part of why I think there is a certain revival happening right now. It's like, there has been this spiritual warfare, and like now it's coming to pass that, there has to be an awakening of some kind to rectify the situation, or to, make things right. I'm hoping anyway, who knows? But again, we have to be meek and humble too. This is interesting. Okay, well, I will look this up and get into it. Because I have a very tiny like copy of Gnostic Gospels, but I'm interested in that kind of story as well. That would be interesting. I have a friend who is a Gnostic priestess, actually, so I might ask her about it and see what she recommends. If there's like a collection that she recommends. Um, you know what I recommend though? Have you any of you read Mark Twain's Adam's Diary? I've thought about coming on here and reading it sometime. I think I might actually in the near future just come on here and do like maybe on a weekend, do a reading of Adam's Diary by Mark Twain. It's a very funny depiction of life in the garden between um,
Adam and Eve. It's from Adam's perspective, it's like he's keeping this diary about his experiences. So yeah, I think I will get on here and share that soon. Mm, yeah. You would think that the preservatives would help preserve us, though. Like, why is it being called preservative if it's killing us? It would make no sense. Yeah, the Gospel of Thomas is amazing. I can't. I don't know anyone who's read that hasn't been like, whoa. There's a message in it from Jesus about how if we if we don't bring if we don't bring out what is within us, it will destroy us. It's a very interesting kind of message. But anyway, all right, y'all. I've been on here long enough. I think I've been on here 2 hours. I don't know if I have any other spooky stories I want to tell. I did tell about the man. That cloud thing that I saw was, again, I still think about it sometimes and I kind of just am like, what the hell did I see? Because it was like, maybe I could draw it. Maybe I could draw it for you all to see so you can kind of like understand what I'm describing. I kind of want to like see if I can draw a depiction of what I saw in the sky. Okay, so like this paper is okay. Well, whatever. I'm gonna do a quick little drawing. So the demonic cloud was white. Okay, it was like a white cloud. And then the other clouds were dark. They were like a brown or something, like, I don't know, brownish. Like when I remember it in my mind now, it's like brown is what I'm seeing. Okay, so let's see here. Oh, I'm gonna be able to, oh, goodness. Okay, so okay. Okay, bear with me, y'all. Okay, so this is kind of what I saw. All right, it was kind of shaped like this. Not exactly, okay, because it was a cloud formation, but it was moving very, very quickly, quicker than any cloud I've ever seen. And then behind it was this mass again, and this was like a white color, and then the whole sky, y'all, the whole sky, as far as I could see, okay, as far as I could see, the whole sky blanketed in this like wall of cloud that was just rumbling. It was like moving over the sky and blanketing everything. It was so wild. Like, ugh. It looks like a troll doll. No, not my troll dolls. Not my sweet little troll dolls. They would never do anything like that. My little trolls would never do that. No, I have not. I have not looked into the work of Rudolf Steiner. Interesting. Matthew has apparently. Okay, so that's good. Yeah, y'all get chatting. But yeah, yeah, it was so wild. It really was no, it wasn't a cloud, y'all. It was a cloud, but it wasn't a cloud. I don't know. I don't know if, again, like I said, I want to call it a vision, but like I saw it in the sky, like covered the whole sky. It was the normal sky that I looked out at every night because like my bed was right next to the window. So I would always like, get into bed and like look out the window and, or get up in the middle of the night and look out the window. It was very common for me, but it was freaky. And yeah, even thinking about it now, I'm like, and it wasn't just like the shape of that cloud. It was the fact that like I'd never seen a wall of clouds come rumbling through the sky so quickly because like that cloud was moving very fast, but the other clouds were moving as quickly behind it. And it like this is very close. It wasn't this close. Like when I saw it in the sky, it wasn't this close. I just realized after I drew it that, I wanted to have a depiction of the other clouds that so this came rushing through the sky very quickly, like like a craft of some kind or something. I don't know. And then the same like wall of cloud of like dark brown cloud just kind of two little legs and a big tall hair. No, no. It's not a troll. I mean, I guess I could see if it's like upside down, yeah. But where are its arms? You've been seeing some strange things. The sky, we do have to look up in the sky, honestly. I don't think people look up enough. There are interesting things that happen in the sky. Like, if you're looking, you can see some pretty interesting things. Like, don't even get me started on the like chemtrails. I swear, like the mornings I go out and I like, if I see a lot of them too, I'll just take a picture of them, and I sometimes, and this all the gaslighting about freaking chemtrails too. It's so obvious that they're like seeding clouds. It's just so obvious. They're not normal clouds. They are not normal at all. They don't look normal. And then, later that day, it's, and it usually, again, it happens sometimes like I notice they'll like appear when we haven't had a rain for a while. Like those clouds will appear and then we'll get like, later in that day, like they'll start to, we'll get rain, and we'll get rain for a couple of days or something. It's like it's interesting. I know when I see them, I'm like, yeah, we're gonna get rain. Are they poisoning us? Is that I mean, I don't know what to think about it. Matthew says, don't get me started. No, I want to get started. What's wrong with the clouds? What's wrong with the clouds? That is irritating. That is irritating because, like, it's so obviously unnatural. And okay, what about the sun? Okay, have you all kind of had a difference with the sun? Because the way the sun looks now to me is very different than it did when I was young. The sun now is like white. The sun was not white when I was little. The sun was yellow. Am I crazy here? I don't maybe get into Mandela effects or something else, like, because I did a video years ago about like Mandela effects. I don't know if it's still up. It probably isn't. Like it was years and years ago. But I think the sun is like part of it too. Hey baby, oh baby. You're so baby. Oh, you want some of this? Come here. Oh, poor baby. Well, I grew up. I was born in the 80s, but I don't really have. I have very few memories from the 80s. Like I have a handful of memories from the 80s. Like um, I had most of my memories are from the 90s, and the 90s the sun was yellow. It was yellow. And yes, Berenstein, not Berenstain. I'm from the Berenstein universe. I am not from that Berenstain fake ass or this fake ass Berenstain world. Like, it's really, yeah, it's interesting. Like, and it makes me wonder, about like, well, what's happening in the world and like, what is the nature of it exactly? Maybe the world powers just decided they like better. They just like white better. Maybe. All right, so you live in Colorado. Colorado is really strange. I almost moved there. I did not like it. I did not like it at all. It's like a very beautiful state, but it's like, I don't know. I wouldn't want to live there. I would not want to live there. It just did not have a good vibe. Oh, you baby. But yeah, I don't know what to think of it. I just think it's interesting that there's like these subtle weird differences. The one that really got me with like the Mandela effects was the Kit Kat. Kit Kats were like they had a little dash between the word Kit Kat. Okay. I can remember as a child, like, I would like play. I like playing with my food, but I remember I have this memory of putting like my fingernail in the middle, because it would say Kit Kat on the bar itself, and I remember sticking my finger in that little bar, the little hyphen between the two. I mean, that's a good way to think of it, Sophia, and maybe that's the best way to think of it. Like, maybe physical reality just isn't that as solid as we're made to think it is. Maybe it's just like but I don't know, it's weird. Yeah, but I don't know, it feels like the companies are gaslighting us about it though. It's like, oh, Kit Kat never had a hyphen in it. What Berenstein was always Berenstain. Like, if you're changing it, like, why are you not owning up to it? Because I had a friend, when I first kind of got into the Mandela effect, I remember her being like, they're just gaslighting us. They're just messing with us. She's like saying like, it's just, yeah, they're just messing with us. I was like, well, why the hell or what is the purpose of messing with us all to this degree that we feel like we're misremembering things? It's strange. Oh, you are so loving. Why am I so lucky? I got this love in my life. I got this little love. Oh, he's so loving. Oh my goodness. He's so sweet. He just want to cuddle with me all the time. That's so nice. Yeah, you care for me. I care for you. Okay, yeah. Oh, that was interesting. That was some woke nonsense too. Getting rid of Aunt Jemima. Like, oh no, we can't have Aunt Jemima on the cover. That's like, I don't even know. Like, my mind just like, Aunt Jemima was a real person. Like, she was a real person. She was a real person. She was a real person. Like, we could have a depiction of her. It's so strange. Yeah, I know. I think, yeah, maybe that's part of it. Like, we don't trust ourselves, so we'll just believe anything that's, kind of said to us. Maybe that's part of it. I don't know. Hi, S.A. Brady. Yeah, he's a sweet gato. He's a sweet little gato. Mind unveiled. Okay. The reset and repopulation theory. So I've seen this in relation to like Tartaria a bit, where they talk about like also like the orphan trains and that kind of thing, the Great Reset, and they talk about like mud floods. And is this related to that at all? It's yeah. Oh my goodness, look, you're so baby. Look, you're so baby. Why are you so baby? Because like it's clear we're being gaslit about history. It's clear that the past like had advanced technology that we're not aware of at the very least, let alone anything else. Okay. Okay. So this is related. Okay. Maybe check out that channel. But they are people. Like legally speaking, they are people. Don't you hate like when you see those like you see those silly like different corporations on social media, like Twitter or whatever, like having like fake beef with each other or like responding like they're not, silly. Like it just, I remember like seeing Wendy's dragging someone or like things like that. It's just like, calm down. You're not a person, you're a corporation. Oh, great stuff to go to bed with. Yeah, I imagine so. What is the Cabbage Patch? The Cabbage Patch. That sounds intriguing. You're so baby. Oh my goodness. You're so babies. Oh my goodness. Yeah, I'm glad I got off of Twitter. Not, I mean, like, my Twitter was fun. I had some great tweets. Like, I really did. Sometimes I look back and I'm like, man, that was gold. um, but then again, I had coworkers like, you know, going through years and years of my tweets to try and get me in trouble with, my employers because of like transphobia or whatever. So, it's probably best that it's gone and I don't have that record, but what have you. Hmm. I have never heard of the Cabbage Patch. Y'all, oh my goodness. What is this? What? What? Because I remember hearing about like, because I remember like the orphan train thing, and seeing these depictions of like all of these orphans coming into cities out of nowhere, like all of these kids just like randomly, flooding into different cities, different countries, and the setups of these orphanages. So and they don't really have any record of like where these kids come from other than like, oh, they came from like the east or like whatever. It's just kind of, oh, I'm getting chills even thinking about it, honestly. Like, we got test tube babies. What are they? The orphan train thing is related. I don't know. Yeah, when I think about it, I get chills. Like, I just, ooh, even thinking about it, I'm like, creeps me out. Like, whoa. Y'all, I'm gonna look this up right now. I'm looking this up right now. Oh my god! So we can grow babies in incubators. So why do women have to have? I'm so confused. Okay. Wow. Y'all blowing my mind right now. What the hell? Okay, that's interesting though, because like we pretend like this technology is like new or something, but apparently it's something that they had before. So, okay, I'm gonna pull this up here. I'm gonna watch this. Oh, this is well produced. My goodness. I like this intro.
Search on Old World Photoshop, we began to notice a trend with old postcards from the 1900s showing early examples of compositing. There isn't much information on these. If there's a catalog, it's not easy to come by, but many of these are early examples of photo manipulation. They had surreal, real photo postcards, in which they would attempt to trick people with the illusion of photography. As we continued to look through these old postcards, a very strange and unsettling trend started to become apparent. It began with just simple baby postcards. At first thought, seems like any ordinary postcard. But as with the same sky postcard mystery, where the author began to see a trend of a variety of postcards, well, there's a category of postcards that deserves its own name and label, but it doesn't seem very well known, as there are no websites or videos explaining this topic.
You need to get down
We
here.
shall
I'm not
call it
being safe.
the
Baby,
mystery
baby,
of
I
the
can't.
repopulation postcards. There are other names for this style, such as baby postcards. By the end of this video, you'll be shocked at how many of these there are. We're talking in the thousands. We found one reference to what these cards were in a book on Amazon named Babylon Surreal Babies, in which the author describes these same peculiar 1900s postcards and how they were deeply influential to many famous artists, including Salvador Dali. Yet, the author even admits that little is known of their history. In order to understand why we've labeled them repopulation postcards, a thorough understanding of resets, criteria, orphan trains, incubators, asylums, and Oddfellows will be necessary. These cards depict babies being grown.
The music's a little much for me. Well produced though.
There are many different styles within this category. One of the most interesting is the Cabbage Patch Babies, a variety of themes involving growing babies.
Yesterday you came to me, Mr.
Babies on plants, babies on mushrooms, babies in the water,
Weird. Stop. Okay, off. 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 Off.
babies in a nest, babies in eggs being hatched. Then the babies arrive on the train.
Wow. Yeah, these
There's
are
something
creepy.
eerie about these photos, as if someone's trying to tell us something.
We've also got kids in Cabbage Patches. Hmm. Does this have anything to do with the Cabbage Patch Kids? So, where do babies come from? In the early 1900s, the most common answer given to children would simply be that the stork would bring the babies, or that they were found in a cabbage patch. But why would babies be found in cabbage patches? The legend of the Cabbage Patch Kids involves a young boy named Xavier who meets a mystical fairy bunny bee creature, so a hybrid or chimera, and he follows this bunny bee through a secret tunnel behind a waterfall. On the other side of this waterfall, he finds that babies are being produced in a cabbage patch. The stork, known as Colonel Casey, would then come and pick up the babies. He even has his own uniform. So he's a worker, a soldier, as well as the Cabbage Patch Kids' official historian that would then deliver the babies to their new homes. Not only that, but there's an evil witch named Lavender McDay. She and her weasel and jackrabbit henchmen are literally trying to enslave the Cabbage Patch Kids to be miners to dig for gold in the valley. You can get all the exposition for the
Yo.
lore and story through their 10-song album. It goes over how they were created, to the witch, to even a lament about their enslavement. It's pretty dark. The original concept for the cloth dolls was created by Martha Nelson Thomas, and she called them doll babies. And the story really had nothing to do with cabbages or chimeras or witches. It wasn't until Xavier Roberts, or Xavier, like the little boy in the story, hijacked her design that it became what it is today. So I can't help but wonder if Xavier Roberts just came up with the story all on his own. Like, did it come to him from the collective consciousness? Or does he just have a soft spot for child labor? There's actually a place you can go in White County, Georgia, where they do live births, and you can look it up on YouTube to see what I'm talking about. The bunny bee character also is a hybrid creature of two animals that both symbolize rebirth and resurrection on a mass scale.
Yeah.
As we know, rabbits reproduce in droves, and the bee symbolism makes me think of a hive, or a queen or source where all the offsprings originate from. It would seem that this is some sort of reference to babies being created in a lab on a mass scale. Why were there so many orphans? Most common answer will be, the baby boom. But this didn't happen until 1946 to 1964. These postcards are from 1890 to 1910, and there's really no explanation for the burst of orphans that we see being brought into the United States, or the amount of orphanages and asylums that exist that no longer seem to be necessary. Could the baby boom narrative be a way to sweep this part of history under the rug? The orphanages were all shut down, and after the 60s, people just stopped having babies and getting married after World War II, according to the narrative. Then there were the incubators of the 1900s. It's difficult to keep premature babies alive with modern technology, yet they were doing this back in 1835 in Europe. They turned this into a sideshow, where at the world fairs they would show off these child hatcheries, these incubators of live children. And for some reason, the royals would come and witness these events. So there's this genetic manipulation cloning idea, in which these babies are actually being grown in some sort of pods. Perhaps the symbolism of the Cabbage Patch mirrors that process. Humans do resemble plants in the way that we're connected to a stem in our fetal state, and our whole lives are spent ripening. In the fetal abduction theory, we typically see a nurse looking woman with either a fishing hook or a fishing net pulling a child out of the water. Perhaps the hook and net represent medical tools and the water amniotic fluid. In either scenario, it would make sense that these babies have to end up in incubators or hatcheries. And it begs the question, how did all these premature babies get here? If women back in, these days were having babies prematurely, why in such large numbers? And the babies all being babies, they'd have to have traveled there somehow within a short period of time. What are the chances that so many premature babies were driven from wherever their mothers were to these incubators all in time? And why do they charge people to view them as if this was some sort of exhibition or sideshow and not a pressing matter of life and death? For centuries, the stork has been thought of as a symbol for new beginnings and family lineage. The idea that this creature represents life giving events also makes sense because storks are monogamous creatures, and they mate only once every year with their partners that they've chosen beforehand, choosing mates based solely on personality instead of looks, like many other birds. Now we've got kids inside a train, orphan trains. Why so many
Oh,
orphans?
Lord.
Were these orphans taken from their families? Were they trained to instruct a new generation of genetically created babies? Or were they womb napped babies? And we've got kids growing on trees, kids being carried by storks. The Greek goddess Hera and her Roman counterpart Juno also favor the stork. And I'm sure you guys remember that quirky little teen pregnancy movie from the 2000s. And I suspect that Artemis of Ephesus is an ancient fertility symbol used by the elite to signify their ability to reseed a new population. So we've got hooks removing babies, kids in the water with a woman holding a net or fishing rod, the water, the amniotic fluid, pulling children from the wombs of their mothers, perhaps. Could that be why there are so many premature babies? Or are they genetically manipulated? Cloning is not impossible. Just look at Miracle Millie. I think that the movie Aeon Flux is a great example. Hollywood is definitely alluding to this reality of artificial repopulation. The Cabbage Patch Kids sort of reminds me of those medieval occult books that depict humans growing from roots in the grounds or mandrakes, which are known to have occult properties for making one go insane.
Babies are also ready to join their elite clubs, and they're even given top hats. Technology, clothes, and empty cities? Babies floating in on boats, all signifying children being born or found and then taken by the mother, the one with the basket. Yet, this is a figure that represents the government's function as a mother, a corporate operation of generating foundlings in order to fill their newly emptied and burned cities with new humans. Whoever made these postcards are trying to tell us something very dark about the world we live in, as if it's humorous. There's an extraordinary amount of work put into these early photo manipulations. One would think there should be a good resource for these old postcards, but they are rare and difficult to find. Babies with hats, babies in the empty cities, babies with new technology, babies in the classroom, babies being brought in boats, and babies being grown in a variety of different situations. Is this some type of clever reference to the cloning of humans? We know of the sudden rise in orphans during the 1800s, but where do they all come from? Where do babies come from? All we can hope is that our minds may be unveiled.
Let go of everything you think to be true.
Oh my goodness, y'all. That was something. Yeah, that was something creepy. Weird to think about. Yeah, but I have seen like those little postcards, like not that many of them, but I've seen depictions of them here and there, or, I never really have, I don't know. I'm thinking now. I'm thinking now. What's wrong with the babies? Where'd they come from? Like with the Tartaria like theory, there was this great civilization that existed that was, um, erased from history. And when I'd heard of like the orphan trains, it sounded like that they had just stolen all these children. I mean, baby stealing is a common thing. Um, Historically, and even like wars, when wars are fought, like often the spoils of war are women and children, or like new population. You're taking, people are our resource. Human beings are the greatest resource there is. um I'm kind of like thinking now about that a bit. You were in an incubator. Of course, you're a real person. Why would you not be a real person just because you were in an incubator? I mean, you could get put in an incubator for all kinds of reasons. I have a, neighbor that works with premature babies, actually. She, is a nurse and she works with the preemies specifically. Little tiny little babies. Oh, they're so tiny. I don't know why they were like suspicious though about why they would charge people to like see these babies though, because at the World's Fair, I mean, you were charged to see all kinds of things. Be interesting to go to a World's Fair. They must have been really fascinating events, you know. Um, I didn't know they had incubators that long. How would you create the working population quickly? Yeah, it's weird. It's weird to think about cloning. So yeah, you had mentioned something, Matthew. Actually, you had mentioned something. I read a comment from you about their faces. Yeah, you said their faces are telling. Now, I couldn't really make out their faces so much, but are they like cloned? Do they look the same? Are they the depictions the same babies? I don't know what you meant by that. Um, and yeah, I totally agree with you. Because our history is already being, rewritten about that. Um, and yeah, since everything is digital, it is easy to wipe. I don't really either. Like, I just want to move on with my life. I wasn't happy with it when it was happening. But one thing that kind of weirded me out, like during the pandemic, was seeing like I saw several times people were sharing photos from like the, influenza pandemic. People were sharing like these old Edwardian photos I guess, yeah, that wouldn't be Edwardian, but World War One photos of people during the influenza pandemic, and they were masked in the photos. And I remember seeing that and being like, that is highly suspicious because, like, that's a period of history I've studied quite a bit just as a point of like interest for me. And never previously had I come across any photographs where people were wearing masks. And I'm not saying they weren't, I don't know for sure, but I thought it was really interesting to see that. These photos were being kind of shared when I had never seen them before in depictions of the like influenza pandemic, which I think is what most people are familiar with prior to this one. All right, later, Nada. Good to see you. Stop by. The homunculus. I know what a homunculus is, like a tiny human being kept in a jar. Orphanages were everywhere. Okay, so yeah, they probably were clones then. Well, yeah, I know about like Chinese people doing it. I mean, like, that's their culture though. It was always like if you were sick, I remember like through many different times, like in their culture, if you're sick, it's just considered polite to wear a mask so that you don't like spread your germs. But it wasn't expected. It wasn't an expectation though that if you weren't sick, you would wear a mask. I think that's the difference now is that if you're not sick, you're expected to wear a mask. No, don't feel silly for being dramatic. No, it is weird. I imagine it would be a weird thing to kind of contend with. I have a friend who like is a chimera or something. Like he was a twin, and then like I guess his twin died in the womb, and like he absorbed her or something. You know what I mean? Like, so I remember like, I don't know why his parents told him this. Like, he's the child of one of my friends, but like, I don't know why they chose to tell him that because like, he has all of this like weird, like anxiety and like disturbed feelings about the fact that he has like some parts of his twin in him or something. Like, I'd imagine that would be very difficult to process mentally. It's one of those kind of things that seems strange and disturbing and unnatural. I mean, if somebody told me I'd had a twin and that they'd like, you know, died and I'd been, I'd absorbed them, I feel like if that happened to my kid, I wouldn't tell them, like, you know what I mean? Like if, you go to the doctor and they're doing the ultrasound, they're like, oh, it's twins. And then later on it's like, oh, no. Yeah. Stacy would want to know. Stacy would want to know. I would not want to know. Good God. Some fetus somewhere in me. No, he was very like he got violently upset about it. Like, yeah, I don't want to say like violently, but like he didn't like punch or kick or like that, but he was a teenager at the time and like it got brought up somehow and he just got like very emotional about it, like, and was clearly very, very upset. Like, yeah, I imagine it would be very disturbing. Orphanages were everywhere. It's like, yeah, why were there so many orphanages? I mean, I know that like, I don't know, because you don't hear about orphanages in the same way nowadays. They're not the kind of like thing that they were in history. Like I can't just go down to the orphanage and pick up a kid, you know. Like, okay, you're gonna be my kid now. You're gonna live with me now. Oh my God, Matthew, no, no. I don't think I am. I mean, I could be. I don't remember, but I have a feeling like I'm not. I definitely came from my parents. I look like the both of them so much. I mean, the abandoned asylums. Yeah. That's interesting. Yeah, we don't have asylums like we used to, which is like interesting because I think a lot of the people that we see on the streets, you know, nowadays would be people that would otherwise have been in asylums. That's really interesting. Supposedly, many orphans were coming from England, yeah, Protestant nation where divorce is acceptable, and so is, I mean, the Protestants are comfortable with birth control, you know, practicing, you know, some kind of birth control. So that is very interesting that they would have that many children coming from England. Yeah, it doesn't make sense. You would think that the Catholics, because the Catholics are the ones that, you know, just naturally produce more. So that doesn't make any sense. What's going on? Where did all the babies come from? You can order babies from catalogs? What? And now we have to like subject ourselves to like IVF and surrogacy and like, you know, all manner of things when they could just order a baby from a catalog. That's not fair. I want to bring back the catalogs. I don't. I don't. I think children, you know, should be made in the right way. But it's just, it's kind of interesting. God, you know, these poor kids, these poor children. Like, I don't know what do you all think? Like, because I watch this stuff, I don't necessarily believe it. Like, I'm not like watching this thinking, yeah, they're cloning kids or growing them in some capacity. I don't think that's necessarily what happened. But like, what do you all think? I'm crazy. I don't know. Like, sometimes I would like to have children, you know, sometimes I think I would. Um, I'm still like fertile as far as I know, but I know it would be like really difficult on me to have a child like naturally just because of my physical condition. So, you know, taking that into consideration, it's something that I like, you know, worry about. You know, if it were that easy to have a child, like, you know, it's like, oh, I could just order one from a catalog. But then I don't think children, you know, should be treated that way. They're not, children are, you know, they're precious. They're gifts. They should not be, you know, treated like some kind of thing you can just order up or buy like anything else. I don't think children should be a commodity, you know. So yeah, I have conflicts. So yeah, like there's like part of me that's like, what? Where do I get a baby? Like, but right, yeah, I have no idea. Like this is the thing. I just kind of like sometimes with this stuff, with these you know, with these kind of conspiracy videos, I just kind of like to watch them to get kind of like spooked or kind of wonder, you know. I don't really I don't really have an opinion. It's just like the flat earth thing. I love the flat earth theory stuff. I get all sucked into it. I find it fascinating. But my actual opinion, I have no idea, don't care, you know? Okay. Yeah, no, it makes sense, especially like hearing the story about like them being programmed or like being grown to like work in the mines. I was just thinking about the mines recently. I watched this really amazing interview with what's his name? Richard Burton, I think the actor, Welsh actor. And he came from like a mining family. And there was this interview I think he gave with Dick Cavett, and he talked about like the romance of the mines, and like he never was sent to them, but his father worked them. And like other like men in his community did. And they like actually he talked about how much people actually really like there was this kind of love that they had for them. That's true too. One of my favorite hmm, I suppose so. You're right. And if you get rid of you have to but I don't know, it's kind of interesting too because like after World War I, like society changed really drastically. The class dynamics of society started to change drastically. It wasn't just like the Bolshevik Revolution in Russia. I mean, I think that had something to do with it, but there was like a liberalization for the working classes, and it was the first time that working class people, specifically young working class women, stopped like going into service jobs. They didn't want to work in like as maids, that kind of thing. Um, one of my favorite like TV series that I watch periodically, like one of my favorite TV shows of all time is called Upstairs Downstairs, and it's like this um, period drama from it was produced in the 70s, and it takes place during like the late 1800s to 1930, so that time period. And it's just kind of interesting because like all of these houses, like the aristocratic houses, they would have multiple servants, and they would have these um, very young girls like go into service, like doing the hardest kind of jobs, like the scrubbing the floors, being a scullery maid or whatever, cleaning like floors and dishes, and like being responsible for like the people's waste in the house, things like that. And yeah, they would go into service like very young. They would be like maybe 11 or 12 when they go in there, and they'd be very tiny and usually unhealthy. They never got any sun. They worked really long hours. They'd maybe get a day off every 2 weeks. And they might they get to leave for church on Sunday because everybody would go together. But like yeah, it was really interesting way of life. But then it wasn't just like the aristocratic houses, because like everybody needed them, like unless you were working class yourself. um, all the middle class households would need to have a maid of all work. So a maid of all work was kind of like not a specialized maid like they would have in the aristocratic houses. So if you worked in an aristocratic house, you had a specific position and you had to keep your place. So if you were a parlor maid, your responsibilities would be different than like, if you were a lady's maid. You know, there'd be like the different, you know, job titles, duties, and descriptions. What? No, 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 no. You know, you'd have all these different. Oh my goodness. You'd have all these like, you know, you would have a specialized skill in the house. Or you're a kitchen maid, or you know, you're a cook, or you know, or maybe you're a seamstress of some kind. But like a maid of all work had to just like do any kind of work that you know the household needed, and that's usually who would be employed in the middle class houses. So you know they'd just be doing it all, you know, alongside the wife of the family usually. Although like you know she wouldn't do the really hard labor. She would do like the more, she might do more specialized labor or that kind of thing. But she wouldn't, you know, the maid of all work would like be responsible for like cooking meals and like serving sometimes. And like it's yeah, it's kind of interesting. So I'm thinking about this like after World War One, obviously like the population, especially the males, were decimated, and a lot of the working class females had, you know, experience working in some capacity as something other than like maids. You know, they worked in factories, you know, during the war, so they had like different skills. So after World War One, like unemployment was just rampant, you know, at least in England and other countries too. It was like tough. The war didn't, you know, improve the economy very much, you know, for the average person. Um, so I'm just kind of thinking like, and then I'm trying to piece it together with these like postcards, like when these postcards were being produced. And, you know, obviously they were before then, but I'm like, well, why didn't they at that time just like, why was it that, you know, if they could have just produced, you know, more easily like expendable workers, why didn't they? Because it became a lot harder and harder for people to have servants, you know, after World War One. Not only did like the cost of servants go up, but like just the people willing to do it went down drastically. Like prior to that, you know, you would be grateful to have a place anywhere because life was so tough. But like after it, and well, they also instituted like the dole too. So they had like some sort of welfare system. And like if these women were, you know, married and their husband died in the war, then they were entitled to collect a pension from that. So a lot of these young women would, you know, they would get married, or like they, you know, their paramours or whatever would marry them maybe earlier than they would have otherwise, because they knew if they died they would get like a pension. So I'm kind of like, my mind is kind of spinning with like, well, why did this like stop, or has it stopped? Who knows? Because you look on like social media sometimes and everybody looks the same, but I don't, a lot of that's filters and makeup, you know, and like plastic surgery trends and that kind of thing. I know, it's so sad to think about, but I think about it like too. I'm like, I'm sure, I don't know for sure, but I'm sure I had like ancestors that must have done that kind of work, you know, to some capacity. Yeah, or they slept in the attic. They didn't just, you know, sleep in the basement. They would sleep in the attic too. I mean, usually servants' quarters, or they would either, yeah, they'd be either be in the basement or the attic or some other part of the house that was out of the way. It's interesting to think about like the history of it. And you know, just imagining like you have the really big like estates, you know, out in the country with like a lot of land, they'd have a fleet of servants. If you were in like the city and you were an aristocratic family in the city, you'd have a handful, of servants. You wouldn't have like, you might have a chauffeur, a butler, a cook, a housekeeper, a lady's maid, a valet, a footman or two, parlor maid, kitchen maid, scullery maid, whatever. I see what you mean, Matthew. Yeah, I see what you mean. Well, and I think too, the technology kind of changed things as well. So like during that time, there became a lot of new technologies that were available to people. So like appliances that they didn't otherwise have. And then a lot of houses started having electricity instead of so they'd have electric light instead of gas. And then with electric came things like vacuum cleaners and all manner of things, gadgets and things that they didn't have available before. Although, yeah, and the stoves kind of changed. And then, I don't know. It's interesting. Hmm. Well, I mean, what's happening now, because like a lot of people are concerned about the declining birth rate in, multiple countries. So like, it makes me wonder, like, I don't know. I'm kind of like I'm gonna be smoking on this one. Wow, what an interesting topic. What an interesting topic to kind of explore. What do you think about it? Did you come from a cabbage? Was you from a cabbage? You not no cabbage. You wasn't no cabbage. No. You did appear though. You appear. You're so special. You're so special. Where did you come from? No, get started. Go off. Well, yeah, there was that video, like, that Joy Reid video was really wild. Was that yesterday or the day before? Well, it wouldn't have been the day before, but yeah, yesterday, the Joy Reid video. She's like, are you mad that the white birth rate is declining? Maybe that's part of it too. Yeah. And then, yeah, a population would be a lot harder to take care of too, if, the bigger it is. Oh yeah, declining birth. Yeah. And yeah, Candace Owens she did a recent thing, I think, cause she just had her third kid, and she was talking about birth complications recently and how prevalent they seem to be among women that she, nowadays. Like she was mentioning, like, of the women she knows that have recently been giving birth, like they've had all kinds of problems and complications. And she even had one, I think, with her second birth. So, yeah, it's kind of wild to think about that. I do think like the food, yeah, the water, yeah. So Monsanto, like all of it, that probably has something to do with it. I think people might be sicker. It could also be like the technology's impact on us, our bodies. I think also too. I mean, one thing that came to mind was just the fact that women are having children older. But I don't think that's completely it though either, because it's not unnatural for women to give birth later on in life. It's just not. It shouldn't be more complicated. I mean, I understand that there are complications with it, but it's not that serious. Or it didn't seem to be previously. So it must be something else that's going on. So it's interesting that she was kind of talking about that, and that she noticed that so many women, just in the circle of women she knew, were dealing with like severe birth complications. I don't know. I mean, it's not easy bringing life into the world, as a person. It's just not. What if we're all the like descendants of clones? But I don't think I am. I did my family tree. Y'all. But what if it's all made up? Yeah, I mean, what can people do, really? You know what I mean? Like, what can we do? It is what it is. I think a lot of millennials, just speaking as a millennial myself, I think a lot of us, when I was in my 20s, I was not in any position to have a kid at all. Like, I I would not have been good with that. That wouldn't have been a good situation. It would not have been a good situation for the child, like specifically. So, baby boy, come on. I love you, but you getting on my nerves with that. We cuddle very soon. We will be cuddling very soon. I kind of think of that like it is what it is. We get so much like there's so much criticism about it, like, but what are people to do if you're like paying off like debts, and this, that, and the third, and like the break, you're not married, you're not in a stable relationship, you don't have like things in order. I mean, there's a certain order, that people want to have kids in, and I think like, I think for millennials, like we just, I would never like my parents had me like, they were not prepared to have me. I'll just say that. So like life is what it is, but I think that kind of experience made me very wary, about having kids too. Like I didn't want to do it in the wrong way. You know, like it's better to not do something than do it in the wrong way sometimes. And I think that's the attitude that a lot of millennials had. And then there's like social programming too, because like there's all the definitely like the child free sort of stuff, promoting the lifestyle of being child free. Which is like being, if somebody doesn't have kids, like they don't have kids. I don't know why it has to be a lifestyle. That's kind of how I see it too. It's like, it's another like false identity. Like, oh, I don't have kids. It's my identity. Like, no, it's not your identity. It's just a fact of your life. It's weird. Oh Lord, have mercy. They're ruining our oats. I have some instant oats. They're organic though, I think. They're from Whole Foods. Now I'm concerned. I'm pretty sure they're organic. Are my oats organic? Yeah, I think so too. Yeah, I think so too. Like, and again, if people are having kids later, then they can sell us all kinds of like, fertility treatments, right? They can, if you can't have a kid naturally, well, oh, okay, let's promote all of this industry. It's another way of promoting industry. Like reproductive technology is here, just keep shelling out more money. Where we screwed out the gate, I don't know. I don't know. I mean, yeah, the economy did crash pretty bad in my youth, and it was pretty hard. I was struggling for a few years there when I think about it. Oh yeah, wasn't that crazy? There was like that period where they were out of baby formula. That was recently, wasn't it? Like, and it wasn't it during the pandemic? They were like out of baby formula everywhere, and people were in panic, and they were like buying it. If they could buy it online, the prices were gouged like out of control. And you have to think about it too, like all of these women now, like having their breasts removed, a lot of them end up having kids. Like there's this couple, they're a couple, they're two female transitioners, right? So they're both born female and they both had their breasts removed, right? And they ended up like, I guess, getting some sperm somewhere, and impregnating themselves because they wanted to have kids. So these two women are dependent, they have to, feed their kids with formula. And I've seen it with a lot of them, like, it's so wicked. It's so wicked. Like, we naturally produce milk. Like, why would you remove your breasts and then still have kids? It doesn't make sense. Yeah, I suppose so. Wow, it's deep. Yeah, I mean, I don't know. Yeah, it is strange. I mean, I know my mother struggled with me. She had mentioned that she like could only do it for about a week, but it like was too physically challenging for her. She couldn't manage it. So she said, so I ended up getting put on the formula, and maybe, who knows what that's done. So yeah, I mean, even if you do have your breasts, they might not work right, or you could have like other complications with them. It's weird. That's wild. That's really wild. But it's like a necessity. It's like, again, this is one of the limits of capital. This is one of the limitations of capitalism. It's not profitable enough, like, but it's a human necessity. It's a need. We're all natural. Well, that's nice. That's nice. But then you grew up on Kool-Aid. We didn't have Kool-Aid in my house. We had Crystal Light, which was probably worse than Kool-Aid because I don't know what they were putting in that. It didn't have much. Yeah, I'm grateful in my household that we didn't have soda and that kind of thing. Or if we did, it was like a rare thing to have soda. So I never really developed a taste for that kind of thing. I mean, now that I'm an adult, I do my little bougie drinks. These Ollie Pops have got me lately. It's like it's like soda, but there's only 2 grams of sugar, and it's made with all kinds of different things. Called carbonated water, cassava root, chicory root, Jerusalem artichoke, nopal cactus, marshmallow root, calendula flower, kudzu root, cassava root syrup, apple juice concentrate, lime juice, natural cola flavor, alpinia galanga root, stevia leaf, Himalayan pink salt, green tea caffeine, natural vanilla flavor, natural caramel flavor, cinnamon extract. Wild. And it's produced in Oakland, California. Nice. It's very sweet. I thought I read that it does have stevia in it. Okay, that's it. It's stevia. That's why it's sweet. Yeah. Well, again, I mean, like I said, like the limitations, it's limitation that is in place, what your values are. And for most of them, it is the bottom line. It is what it is, 'Cause I think certain industries should not be run in that fashion. You know what I mean? Like, or certain consumer goods or certain like commodities, if you will, need to be produced in a different way. Aspartame. Ah, thank you for looking it up for me. Good old aspartame. I think so. I think so. I have a taste for it. I love like kombucha. I love fermented food, and just I don't know. I'm grateful in my home growing up that there was processed food, and once processed food started coming into my home, that's when I started to put on weight, and once I started to like overeat, a bit, but still it wasn't like as bad as it could have been, like I think about like my cousins who grew up like and their house was just stocked with all of these like highly addictive processed foods like hot pockets and like pizza bites and like all manner of like chips and soda pops and that kind of thing. It's like you know that wasn't so much my experience. We had real food in the house. So I developed a taste for it. Okay, so you keep the fat away with being active. I don't really have that option. I have to just watch what I eat. I think there's a difference. I think men are more apt to like burn things off through physical activity. My friend and I were talking about this because she was, she was having some struggles with her weight, and I'd like I've been going through weight loss myself and kind of managing that over the years. So she and I were talking, and she was explaining to me that she was talking with her male friend about it, and he was just being like, "Oh, well, here, just work out like this and this and this." And she works out regularly. Like she's very active in that way. She does like martial arts, and she also goes to the gym, but she still can't like budge the weight. And I'm like, well, I think for us, I think for women specifically, it's the food more than anything else. It's just you're eating too much of the wrong thing. But I've noticed like a lot of men are able to, at least for most of their life, burn it off a lot easier just by doing physical activity. Oh, I love fermented food. Yes, I love it. I love having like some sauerkraut, on the side when I have like a meal. Well, today I didn't have any of that though, but I did have like I had zucchini and beets for my veggies. I had like for lunch, I had a burger patty, and I cut up some zucchini and roasted it alongside that, and then I had some beet salad. So very good. It was good, but I didn't get out any of the thing. Yeah, that's good. That's good. I intermittent fast myself. That's how I kind of maintain and have continued to like have weight loss. So I don't do one. I mean, sometimes I do one meal a day. It depends on the meal. You know, if the meal I have is substantial enough, then I probably will not eat again. I just have an eating window. So like I eat between, you know, certain hours and then that kind of keeps the fat the fat away. Keeps me shrinking. Like keeps me shrinking, keeps me from being, you know, dealing with all that. Okay, I know I said I was going to go a while ago, but I got sucked in by that theory, and the chat has been, you know, very nice tonight. But it is late, and I do need to do a couple of things before bed. So I will wish you all well and see you another time. Okay, thanks for hanging out and chatting. Um,
Nice, nice.
Today I spoiled myself. I went out for a latte and like scone. Yeah. It was nice to go out in the morning because it was not raining. Bye, Stacy. Bye, Matthew. Bubblelandia. Anybody else watching too? Um, I don't know who else is still here, but laters.